It started with a moment no one expected. A moment so sharp and so sudden that nationwide viewers leaned closer to their screens, breath held, waiting for the explosion that always seems to follow when pride collides with politics. Under the bright lights of a Washington policy forum, one that was supposed to be calm, predictable, and almost boring, a First Lady Jill Biden challenged Senator John Kennedy to an IQ test. But no one, not even the First Lady herself, had the faintest idea what would happen just 36 seconds later. Broken bar when Kennedy quietly reached inside his coat, pulled out the sealed letter, and placed it on the table like a card played in a high-stakes game. And in that moment, the entire mood of the room changed. For weeks leading up to the event, tensions between the White House and several outspoken senators had been simmering. Debates over education standards, academic performance, and political rhetoric had grown personal. Jill Biden, a lifelong educator, had stepped into the conversation to defend what she believed were unfair attacks on the administration's handling of federal learning programs. Kennedy, known for his sharp humor and unfiltered honesty, had been one of the loudest critics. The stage was set, long before they took their seats, for a confrontation that neither had planned at a broken bar but both seemed ready for. The exchange began innocently enough. Jill Biden spoke passionately about the importance of education, her voice steady, seasoned by decades of teaching and countless hours of advocating for American students. Kennedy listened with an expression that was difficult to decipher, part polite interest, part quiet calculation. When it was his turn to speak, he voiced concerns about curriculum standards and what he called bureaucratic blind spots, but something about his tone made the room lean forward. Calm, direct, measured. It was in that calm that the spark was born. Then came the moment. Jill Biden, in what many suspected was an attempt to push back against Kennedy's condescending quips, looked him straight in the eye and said, "If you question my grasp on educational policy, Senator, maybe you'd like to take an IQ test, right here, right now." Gasps spread across the audience like a fast-moving wave. Cameras zoomed in. The moderators froze. Kennedy blinked, once, slowly, as if processing whether he had heard correctly. And in a broken bar everything shifted. Silence filled the room, thick and electric. Kennedy reached into his inner jacket pocket. No hurry, no showmanship, just a quiet certainty that made people instinctively brace themselves. He pulled out a plain white envelope, sealed, crisp, untouched. He set it gently on the table. The microphones picked up the soft tap it made, a sound that somehow felt louder than the First Lady's challenge. "Dr. Biden," he began softly, "I won't be taking an IQ test today." His voice was calm, but there was a weight behind it, a gravity that made people sit still. "But I think it's time you saw this." Jill Biden stared at the envelope, confusion washing over her features. She hesitated, then picked it up with careful fingers. The seal broke easily, the paper inside sliding free with a faint whisper. Her eyes moved left to right, scanning the words, and as she read, the tension in her shoulders slowly dissolved, replaced by something far more complex: surprise, realization, and the sting of humility. It wasn't an insult, it wasn't an attack, it wasn't political ammunition. It was a letter from the Louisiana Association of Educators, dated months earlier, long before their recent dispute, thanking Kennedy for quietly donating a large portion of his speaking honorariums to rural schools struggling to afford updated textbooks, teaching supplies, literacy programs, and after-school tutoring. He had never mentioned it publicly, never used it in debates, never even hinted at it. The letter praised his commitment to supporting teachers behind the scenes, noting that many of the programs he funded were designed to help exactly the kinds of students Jill Biden devoted her life to uplifting. She read the last lines twice. Kennedy watched her with an expression softer than anyone in the audience had ever seen from him. "I don't say everything I do," he said gently, "and I don't need cameras to follow every good deed. We're all trying to help in our own ways. Some of us just prefer to do it quietly." For the first time that evening, Jill Biden seemed genuinely speechless. Not embarrassed, and no, that wasn't Ida, but humbled, grounded, human. She folded the letter carefully, almost reverently, as if realizing she had underestimated the man sitting across from her. The audience sensed the emotional shift. Even those ready to cheer for a fiery back and forth fell silent, moved by the unexpected grace of the moment. What followed wasn't a verbal duel, but a conversation, a real, thoughtful, human. Kennedy softened his tone, explaining why he pushed so hard on education reform. Jill Biden responded with new openness, acknowledging flaws within the system she fought for. They didn't agree on everything, but for the first time, they understood each other. By the end of the forum, something remarkable had happened. Instead of two political figures throwing sparks, there were two people, both with flaws, both with passions of finding common ground in a nation that desperately needed the reminder that disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect. As the lights dimmed and the cameras powered down, many viewers felt they had witnessed something rare, a moment where pride gave way to humility, where rivalry gave way to understanding, and where a political clash transformed into a lesson about character, empathy, and the quiet impact of doing good without expecting applause. And the inspiring message that echoed long after the broadcast ended was simple but powerful: sometimes the mightiest answer isn't the loudest voice, but the quiet truth we carry with us and the humility to let it speak.